My book friends. Hello. It's Pamela Fagan Hutchins. I'm one of your founding authors, and I'm your host today for a conversation with a writer that I love, both personally and for her books. And we're going to talk with her for about half an hour and go through the whole gamut of different genres she writes in. She's like amazing. And I'll tell you her bio in a second. I don't want to spoil it for you, but you really want to stick around for this. It's super cool. And partly because she's going to be doing a giveaway of a $20 gift certificate. And all you have to do to enter is comment, and it'll stay open for a few days. So if you're watching this on replay, you're still going to get a chance to win. Before we get started with her, I do need to tell you something. And this is super important because it is a deal and it's only for a limited time. 99 cents. Wait, can you see it? Her Silent Bones, 99-cent Kindle Countdown deal. This means it's available free in Kindle Unlimited, but it's also available for 99 cents. That's my book. It's the first in my series that just came out all together. So that's my shameless plug for the day, but I had to get it in or my publisher would kill me because I haven't even posted about it. Literally, I've not said a word about this to anyone until just now. All right, with no further ado, I want to welcome your comments and my friend, author Holly Roberts. Hello, Holly.
Hi,
How
I'm
are you?
waving.
I know.
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful, but I want to congratulate you on the release of your books. It's
Aw.
so exciting. It seems like it's been forever that we've been waiting for these to come out.
Holly and I started getting to know each other a year ago. I think the first time we talked, I was in a little condo in Denmark, Federation,
Hmm.
Denmark, and we did a episode of my Crime and Wine show because your books had just come out, the Detective Eve Bennett crime thriller series. So
Hmm.
congrats to you because I know the third one published really not all that long ago and wrapped up your
Yep,
trilogy there.
it did.
Congratulations.
I know I fulfilled my contract. That just feels so good. But you did too. No
Yeah,
matter what we had against us to get those 3 books written, we both did it.
it was quite a year, wasn't it?
It was. And I don't know if I ever asked you, have you ever written under contract like that before?
I have not. I have always written under my own deadlines, which were bad
Hmm.
enough, but being under contract was different. What about you? What did you think about it?
Same, very different. I felt it caused a lot more anxiety than simply writing for myself.
Yes.
I was I felt like I was always pushing myself. And let me say that that was great and I learned so much from the entire process of it. It's invaluable. I can't even say how great an experience it was. But at the same time,
You guys, if we experience any technical blips, as is occurring right now, that is because of UFOs or some kind of like interplanetary stardust. Just kidding. It's just technology. And Holly will be able to pop back on when it ends. There we go. She's coming back. We lost you for a
here we
second.
are.
We were talking about the anxiety of writing the Eve Bennett crime thriller series under
Mhm.
contract and how much you learned. And we lost you on how much you learned. So if you'd repeat some of your learnings for
Okay.
us, that would be awesome.
Okay. Just I learned from the pressure. That was
Yeah.
one thing. But the editing process was really fascinating to me, and I had a more streamed-like editing process, which I've now changed. It's like
Yeah.
I'm going through a whole different editing process now, and there were things I liked, there were things I didn't like, but I adapted. And sometimes that's what you have to do.
It,
And so the whole experience was wonderful.
it's funny. It's kind of like real life in the sense that the things that
Yeah,
don't kill us make us stronger, learning from the things that are hard. You
right.
guys, not only did we write for the same publisher, and did I learn a lot from talking to Holly, who I should have started by saying this, is a former homicide detective. Okay, so let's
Oh,
start by putting it out there that she's not
okay.
only an author, but she's the real deal. She's what we write about, right? She did the things that we write about, but we share the same editor. And so we really
Yes.
were able to chat about what we were going through, each of us learning to write in our own way, but yet their way
Hmm.
too.
Yes, it was getting our writing onto the same page as they're on. And some of that was like pulling teeth.
Yes. Yes. I think for me, it was especially book one, her Silent Bones, that I really felt like it was like a root canal with no anesthesia. And I know that you experienced that. I want to say it was on the second book for you that it
It
was
was
so
the second book, and the third book was a dream. I took everything I learned from the first experience and the second experience, and I put it all into the third book. And when my editor, Helen, our editor, when she wrote back and she said, "This is fantastic, best of the three," it was like such a huge win. It was
Yes.
like I learned, I retained, I used what I learned, and I did it. So
And
it was
books
fantastic.
are fabulous. And for
Thank
those that
you.
you're welcome. And for those that aren't familiar, oh, Boston Terrier alert, old guy coming in the building. Hi, Petey. And the Malamutes are wooing outside. Hopefully not everybody hears this. But if we get dog interruptions, it won't just be my house. It might be Holly's, because
In
you've
my house too. Mhm.
got Rottweilers, right? Two big Rottweilers.
I have a Rottweiler and I have a full size um, terrier. I'm trying to think of the name of the terrier. It won't come to me, but she's big. And she's a big terrier. She's a bird dog, a hunting dog, that type, and very different personality than we're used to, because we've had Rottweilers for 35 years. So we have
And
a
your puppy is enormous.
we know he's over 90 pounds. We're not sure if he's at 100 yet. He is 9 months old.
Oh my
So
God. And
he
think
is
about when he fills out.
that's it. He hasn't stopped growing yet. And then at a year, he'll technically stop growing and his joints will settle down. He has a lot of joint problems because he's grown so fast.
Oh
And
yeah.
then that's when he starts filling out at a year old. And he's so big now, it's just, and we laugh because he uses his paws like hands. And even my mom has commented, she's never seen a dog do that, but he has these huge, we call them his club feet, but he
Yeah.
has these huge clubs that he slams on you. And you're just like, oh my God,
He's like, I'm just loving you. I didn't
that's
mean
what
to
he's
go
doing,
across the room.
and you get hit upside the head, and he puts his arms around me. He puts both his paws on me. He likes to get up on my lap. Rottweilers are lap dogs. But anyway, so yes, we could be interrupted by your Malamutes, my Rottweiler, or the Terrier.
And we have had our first Facebook person comment, and I wanted to let you guys know that
Okay.
in the post, there are instructions. If you want us to be able to see your name, you do have to sign up with StreamYard. It doesn't send you anything or do anything, but it just passes your name across to us. So right now, I'm not sure who you are, but I'm waving. Hello. Thank you for
I
joining
know.
us.
I'm waving too.
So with respect to Pray for Her and the other Eve Bennett
Mhm,
books,
mhm.
is it true that you did not have to dig very far from your past as a homicide detective to find the inspiration for this series?
That is very true. I worked in a very large, well, it's small, but large when it came to a Mormon community. And we had people in that community, and there is a huge difference between Mormons and the fundamentalist Mormons, probably
Right.
like every other religion, when you have the regular religion and then the fundamentalist side of it. Anyway, so I dealt with the non-fundamentalist side of it the majority of the time, and then the fundamentalist side of it every so often. I also worked sex crimes, so
Yeah.
that's kind of where that type thing came into. I I started getting really fascinated with Warren Jeffs. I actually remember exactly where I was. I was at the police department when I heard he had been caught in Las Vegas by a highway patrol officer. And I was like cheering for the police. I was like,
Yeah.
yes, just a normal traffic stop is what caught Warren Jeffs. So I really paid attention to that case. I had some women that I dealt with that were actually hiding from Warren Jeffs, from the fundamentalist sect. And that was really interesting and fascinating to talk to them. And I just, I don't know, I had a huge interest in it. And probably, well, up until this last book that I'm doing now, but up until then, the most fun I've ever had researching
Yeah.
any of my books. Researching this was just fantastic. Kind of a dark hole, very dark, deep, depressing hole.
So depressing when you really
Yeah,
dig into what was done and the lasting impact it had on the psyches of the people that eventually came out of these groups. It's totally
right.
depressing. But
It is.
what you did with it, creating Eve as a wounded survivor who
Mm-hmm.
comes in and is trying to save one by one the people within this group who bad things are happening to, made for such a compelling read, because it's really just this ripped from the headlines. I mean, you guys, if you were watching this, what is it, 10 years ago now, 15 years ago now, that all this was going down, it was just chilling. But these books take that and then explode it to a whole new level. And we're getting the insider's point of view in the sense that this was
Mm-hmm.
happening in communities around you, even though, like you said, you were dealing with the non-fundamentalists most of the time with your job. You
Mm-hmm.
had a different perspective and view into it than the rest of us did. And I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
I love
So.
it. And not only did you give us Eve Bennett, and you guys, if you enjoy crime thrillers, you're going to love this series. If you enjoy kick-ass women homicide detectives, you're going to love this story. If you enjoy insider looks into things that were part of our public consciousness, you're going to
Well,
love
cults,
it. And cults.
especially cults. If you have any fascination with different types of cults, which I've had for probably 30 years,
Yeah.
that I follow different cults and things like that. So this has been um, really interesting. And like I said, some of this happened in my life as an officer, which made it, even more fascinating for me and kept my interest up. But just to give a little preface on this, so Eve Bennett is raised within the cult. And they used a way to get her mother in that was typical of them. They actually would send their boys out to courthouses where divorce proceedings are going on. And these women, especially ones that have been abused and stuff, they tell them, we've got a safe place for you to go. We can keep you safe. And this is how they get other women into the community, outside women into the community. And the thing is they're afraid. Law enforcement has usually failed them.
Yeah.
They've been severely beaten, almost killed. And so here's this man telling them, I've got a safe place. Our religious community will take care of you and keep this from ever happening. He'll never find you. And if he did, we'll take care of him. And so that's how they suck these women in,
Yeah.
you know? So, so Eve is raised, she gets there, I think, when she's 4 years old. She's raised in the community up until she's 12, and they're getting ready to marry her off. And during this time, her mother starts realizing that this is a cult and she's stuck in a very bad situation. And then her mother pretty much just disappears. And it's not until she's 12 years old that her mother comes back with two men and they kidnap Eve. Now, they're kidnapping her, and she has been completely indoctrinated into the cult. So, that in itself, she had to get over. And then, as she does start to heal, going to therapy and all these things that are happening in her life, that's when the thought of becoming a police officer comes in, that police officers can change what's happening at the cult level. And so she becomes a police officer, then she becomes a detective, and then a task force is put in place by a federal judge. That's a true story, that the federal judge said now all law enforcement is going to have oversight. So Eve Bennett is put in charge of that oversight, and she gets to build her own team, and it's a very diverse team that I loved writing, especially that takes place in Utah, that is one of the more
Less down.
yeah.
It is. And you now live in northern Arizona, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So your life for many years has been on either side of this border and very used to
Mm-hmm.
and expert in this environment, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I loved too that everyone in this group was threatened in some way, or
Mm-hmm.
threatening to the people of the community just by either the color of their skin or their difference from the people in the community. If you guys see that red
Mm-hmm.
thing behind me, that is a
Mm-hmm.
dog treadmill. I am moving to try to cover the dog treadmill. There we go. I had to take the
Oh,
dog off
good
the treadmill
father.
to do this interview. Um, so so that to me was very fascinating. I found the way that she, as a law enforcement officer, was even an outsider going into this community because the
Mhm.
fundamentalists had their own law enforcement on the payroll, if you will,
Right.
when you'd go into this area. So nobody is your friend. The people you're trying to save don't trust you because they
No.
are indoctrinated, brainwashed,
Yep. Mhm.
and it just, there is no friendly face. And it's very exciting. So I've had a couple of people talking about that the series sound interesting and they're going to check it out. You guys are going to love it. I really did as well. But that's not all that Holly writes. Holly writes a lot of different things. You want
I
to give us like a
do.
brief overview of all the different things you write, you crazy woman?
Well, okay. So I started writing and I wrote my first 17 books while I was a homicide detective. And I worked about a 60-hour work week, if that gives you any idea. So I wrote until late into the night. My husband, in the beginning, worked out of town. He ended up moving in full time into town, got a job at the school district. But I wrote my first 17 books working that schedule, and I would get up at 3 a.m. and I would write. But here was my problem. I was so I had asked to be taken out of sex crimes and it was denied. I was told that I was one of the foremost sex crimes detectives in the state of Arizona because of all my training. And so I was really having a hard time. And so when I decided to start writing, I decided to start writing romance. And there's a really good reason for this, besides that I do read romance and I love romantic stories, but romance has a happy ending. And I was learning that life does not have happy endings. And my job definitely didn't have happy endings. There were so few. And so I wanted to write something that appealed to me. And the last thing I wanted to get into was thrillers or mysteries. So
More of the same, right?
I did. And then when I had, so I wrote romances, very steamy romances, just, I have my best-selling series is a mafia series about a group of mafia people who are not good guys. They're very bad guys, but they're the good.
Okay, so while the sunspot resolves itself, let me tell you, this woman has written steamy romances. She was written cozy mysteries, which is under a different name. And you're now working on a great white shark thriller. Is that correct?
Yes,
I mean, my gosh.
I
She's
love
posted.
animal thrillers. I know, I love when animals attack. I love when animals fight back. And so I'm writing, and this actually.
Okay, she'll pop back up in a second. I got to tell you about a funny conversation that Holly and I had a few months ago on email. We're commiserating over, we're both trying to finish up our crime thriller series. And she's like, have you been reading these stories about the killer whales that are attacking boats off the coast of Portugal? I'm rooting for the killer whales. I'm very inspired. And then I find out you're writing the Great White Sharks book. So
Alrighty, yes. It's just think Jaws, but there's so much more involved. And this actually, it started because of a homicide I dealt with. So
yeah.
my neighbor's husband was murdered. I was the chief investigator for that homicide. And yeah, horrible. And 4 months after her husband was murdered, she was traveling and was in a rollover accident and she's now a paraplegic.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I know, and it's horrible, but she's a wonderful person. She's doing fantastic. This
Good.
homicide happened, I believe, about 13 years ago now. We talk it's the only day I celebrate in my life that on somebody's death, but the day her husband was murdered, she calls me that day every year. And it's not that we celebrate, but we just talk about it, and how those talks have changed through the years has been wonderful. But about 5 years ago, she called me on that day and she said, "Have you ever thought about writing a character that's in a wheelchair?" And I said, "Well, no, but I would really love to." So what I did in my shark book, it's this woman who is in a vehicle accident. She's turned into a paraplegic, and she gets a lot of money from the accident. Her father is a marine biologist, and she grew up, he studies stingrays. Stingrays and sharks are on the same, they have no bones.
Right.
People don't know this, but yeah, sharks are totally made up of cartilage. Even their jaws are cartilage. And so stingrays are in the same class. It's the only other animal in the same class with all cartilage, no bone. So anyway, she decides to go back to the ocean to heal. So they get all this money from the settlement 18 months later, and they outfit this yacht for her and her wheelchair. And she's got a 5-year-old daughter and her husband, and they go out in this yacht. And that's when, if it can go wrong, it starts going wrong. And I also read another little tidbit about sharks, male great white sharks. They've been finding the males traveling in pairs and hunting in pairs. And that kind of started my story. So basically, the one shark is caught up in a net and gets caught in the propeller, and it ends up dying. Think about the whales, because this is what started. The whales were attacked. A female whale was attacked by a boat, an orca, and she taught the other whales to attack the boats. They never killed a person. They sunk these boats. People went into the water. The orcas didn't care about the people. But in my book, so the one shark is caught up, and the other shark is out for vengeance. And you've got this woman in a wheelchair on board a boat, and her 5-year-old daughter, and the husband who's not a great sailor. He's learning. And I'm telling you, so much fun to write. So flipping much fun.
I can't wait to read this. I literally have been, okay, so I'm trying to remember where in the world I was in the last year. That's hard to remember, but where in the world I was when Holly wrote to me about the killer whales. Literally, she's like, "I'm so sucked into this killer whale stuff." And she sent me a link. And then it was like, damn you, Holly, because then I was so sucked
into it too.
I'm like watching video after video of, killer whales attack. And now you're making me think about what happened if sharks communicated like that and start attacking. Oh my God, I'm not going to sleep.
Yes. Well, definitely stay out of the water. And I know Jaws did so much damage to sharks, and I love sharks. I absolutely love sharks. So I'm really pointing out the problem with plastics in the water, the problem with sea nets. I mean, yeah. I'm being able to put all this stuff in the book of what's destroying the oceans in basically a terror-filled horror book of the shark trying to eat these 3 people.
It's not a hating sharks book. It's a sharks being sharks book. No. And it's the natural world colliding with human and civilization.
It is.
And what we're doing to them too. Because the sharks are being murdered by us. And they're fighting back.
Over 100 million. Yes. 100 million sharks, and they feel that that's a low estimate, are killed every single year. 100 million. Yes.
How?
And they feel it's as high as 250 million.
Oh my goodness. So I never dreamed the number would be that high. Being in California this year, we've been on the coast several times. And so my husband, the surfer, has been old surfer now. Love you, honey, but old surfer now. It has been watching the news about shark attacks and trying to decide if there's more or less than usual. And we have these running arguments about, do more people die from shark attacks every year or not? Because there have been some very high profile ones this year where people have been pulled off boogie boards or while swimming or while surfing, etc. But you can't really blame the sharks. We're in their space. And they're being sharks, just like grizzly bears are grizzly bears, and killer whales and And actually, killer
Yep.
whales are wicked smart. Wicked
Yeah.
smart. And
Yes, they are.
anyway, I'm very
And
excited
and
about this.
I mean, I've got all these facts in my head, but killer whales were actually called whale killers. They're actually a porpoise. They're in the porpoise family. They're not in the whale family at all. But they
Yeah.
were called whale killers because that's what they did, is they killed whales, and that ended up being turned around. And but I want to comment. Somebody just on the comments section said that it must be really difficult to write in all these genres. And I want to comment on that. Before I became a cop, I owned a bookstore for 20 years, and I read everything. I jump from nonfiction to something syrupy sweet to something horrifying to, I mean, my reading, I'm so eclectic. I jump all over the place. So writing different genres is not hard when you read them all.
And I bet that applies to a lot of you guys out there, because I've noticed in my book friends that there's a lot of embracing cross genre reading. When I talk with you guys and when the other
Mhm.
authors talk with you guys about what you read, it's usually a pretty long list of, I read this, and this. And so when you think about reading tastes and what authors read, and sometimes what we like best isn't even the genre that we write. What do you think you like to read best, Holly? If you just were picking something up right now for pleasure, would there even be a favorite?
Yeah, I like humor in my books, even my thrillers. I like something with a bit of humor. And let me say, the Eve Bennett novels have very little humor. There's a little, you have to put, because people are humorous just in the day-to-day lives,
Right.
but they're not meant to be humorous. But that's probably what I like. So I don't care if it's romance or a thriller. And just if anyone's going, how do you put humor in a thriller? Think Robert Crace. Think Carlin Hoban. These are Harlan Coban. I said that I misdid his name.
Yeah.
But if you think those, they are very humorous, and
Mhm.
I tend to like it. That type of story. So
Did you find as a homicide detective that you were still able to find humor, even in dark situations, that you were still able to keep your sense of balance and that funny things were still funny? I mean, it seems like that would be a way to cope, a way to stay alive instead of be mired down in death.
right, I think it is. I'd say police officers have a very sick sense of humor. But that is a coping mechanism for us, and being able, just a story. So I got to go to autopsies,
Like
and
stories.
I know, I got to go to autopsies, and you have all the rookie officers have never been to an autopsy. So my chief told me I could pick a rookie to go with me every time I went to an autopsy if I wanted to take one along. So one of my things is you have to keep your mouth shut about my cases. I don't want anything out in the community while the investigation's going on. So I would talk to these officers, and there's a couple I never took with me, but the ones I took, so we would go to these, and I went to one that was especially hard, that we had maggots and things like that you get in autopsies that no longer bother me. It's just something that, you get. But after the autopsy, I always went to this one place that specialized in noodles, in Chinese noodles, because it looks like part of the inside of the stomach. So I would take these rookie officers to get these noodles after we went to the home, or after we went to, I know,
Hazing. You were
the
hazing
autopsy.
poor
And
babies.
it was needless. I'm a horrible person, but I love doing it, and I loved the reactions from the officers. And one just said, "You're doing this on purpose, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "I'm going to eat every bite." And she did. And I had other officers turn green, the male officers turn green and go, "Can't eat this." It's great.
Oh my God.
But yes, we have a
Have you
very
ever
sick sense of humor.
Yeah, and I think you have to. And I feel like that sometimes when we write dark, that that plays a part
Mhm.
for us and for our readers. Did you find, as a retired homicide detective, did you find that it was harder for you to write police procedural crime thrillers than it was other genres because you overthought or brought too much of your work self into it, whereas you could be freer in other genres, like kicking up your heels, but all of a sudden this was,
Definitely.
yeah,
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
wonder
most
that.
definitely. I think on police procedure, I'm very picky when I read my crime novels and stuff. I don't like when people get police procedure wrong.
Yes.
And there are so many things that they get wrong because they're generalized out there and they've become old wives' tales. They're not even true. The whole 48-hour waiting period for a missing person,
Yeah.
that's the most dangerous old wives' tale out there. But I really try to write, without it being boring, actual police procedure, the step by step. I mean, most people don't know. So when you and I did this with the FBI. I was the head detective on a serial killer case, and
Oh,
I brought in the FBI to help me learn so much from them, let me tell you. But I walked around with their photographer. She needed a scribe, and so every picture, she had this numbered thing, and we didn't do this in as as a detective. I had not been trained this way, but she had a sheet with a number, and she would say, I'm taking a picture of a jar of urine, because that's what we had, a jar of urine. And so I would write jar of urine in the number one spot, and she would take that picture. And then she would go to the next and she would call out what it was. And I would give her the number. I would say, okay, number two, what is it? And she would tell me what it is. She would snap the picture. And then I would say, number three, what is it? And we just went through, we spent the whole day together. And so these little things I like putting in the book, that, and I changed the way I did my images and of homicides. And now I scribed everything, usually without help. I did it myself.
and you know something, it's the difference between winning and losing a case later, right? When you
It
have
is.
properly documented chain of
Mm-hmm.
evidence,
Mm-hmm.
and everything ready later for, the court case. So, um,
Yeah.
the Facebook commenter says, I'm expecting a romantic Christmas book in which the protagonist bakes cookies for old age homes, but is actually a horrific serial killer. There's an idea.
Oh, great story.
There you go.
I'll read it.
Christmas books are hot, right? So
I know. I would read that book. That's fantastic.
I love it. I love it.
But just so you know, I thought about writing a thriller that takes place in a senior retirement home.
Oh
And
God. Of course you.
and here's of course I have, but here's the book I want you to think of.
Oh gosh. And she leaves us hanging, or technology leaves us hanging. The sunspot strikes again. Okay, here she is. So
Did
here's
I
what
go away again?
you did. Okay, we were just about to hear your old age home idea. So hit us with it.
Okay. So
The sunspots are toying with us. They are freaking toying with us. So just to run through a few of the comments, remember you guys that there is going to be a $20 gift card awarded to somebody out of the commenters. Holly will come back and address your comments later and pick a winner. Remember that Holly has not only written the Detective Eve Bennett books, which are fantastic, and will allow you to get an insider's view of the Warren Jeffs fundamentalist cult that was on the fringes of the Mormon religion a few years ago, and all the really, really, it's disturbing stuff that happened with that. But she has also written very sexy, steamy mysteries. She has written cozy mysteries, and we have also now got her upcoming shark thriller. This woman does it all. And she's my friend. I forgot to tell you this earlier, but in her past is not only her stint as a homicide detective, but she owned a self-defense studio where she taught women how to defend themselves. So look no further than Holly for the whole package. I count her amongst a very small group of writer friends that had this past homicide detective experience, like Mickey Browning, as people that are ones that I turn to when I have questions, and whose opinions really matter to me when I'm writing scenes where I'm invoking the law to make sure that while I push the bounds of what's believable, that I still get it just right enough not to create an urban myth like she was talking about earlier. So if you want to find out more about Holly and her books, I think she's back here. And so we're going to ask Holly, how do people find out more about you and your books if they're ready to go out and commit to Eve Bennett or one of your other stories?
And I apologize. I live on the side of a mountain. I have
Yes.
horrible internet reception. So I apologize to everybody.
I'm so proud of you for doing this. But as I told her before we started, I'll just tap dance if that happened. Don't worry, I'll tap dance until you come back. So I was telling them about other things, but now how do they find out more about you and more about your books and get these lovely things?
The best place to go is wickedstorytelling.com. And that covers all my genres, all my names. Everything I've got is on there. So that's my website, wickedstorytelling.com.
Awesome. And let's see here. I was trying to pull it up on the screen, but somehow I have created a monster. Is it there? Nope. Anyway, wickedstorytelling.com. And are
Yes.
the Eve Bennett books in Kindle Unlimited? Or are they are available?
They were just moved. Yeah, they were just moved into Kindle Unlimited, so they are available there.
So people that want to read them can actually get them for free, in the sense that if they have a Kindle Unlimited subscription, they can binge to their heart's content. And with what's coming next, it's going to be, what's the name of your shark book that's coming up? People have been asking. Breach.
Yes, the name of it is Breach.
I like that.
A great white, a great white shark has never killed a human being by breaching. And that's how they hunt. So I deep dove into a lot of shark facts and really changed my mind about shark interaction with humans.
And when will that one be coming out?
Comes out June 20th, 2024, exactly 49 years after Jaws the movie released.
Girl, you're having way too much fun with this.
I am. I am.
All right. So now we're all going to read a shark thriller, and it may not have been on our, our list, our punch card, our bingo card for the year, but now we are. Is there any other books that we should know about that you have on the horizon? I've been all obsessed with the shark book, I have to admit, but
well, I kind of like this animal theme because it's been me my whole life. And so I'm really thinking about doing a thriller that takes place in a wildlife animal park where the animals get the best of the humans.
I love that. A little contemporary Jurassic Park going on for us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you. And thank you to everybody who came. I couldn't see if I could answer anything on the chats. So, but I want to thank everyone, and I will be going through them every day and until we pick the winner. So for the next couple days, thank you for showing up. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys, everybody. You've been awesome. I loved the comments. And Holly, we'll have to talk more offline.
I agree.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.